come once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Super2. Joining me today is the one, the only, Rasco of Rasco's Modern Life. Hello, Rasco.
What up, everyone? How you doing?
Well, what is up, Rasco, is that we are here today to continue our fan project reviews. Today we're reviewing a fan film by a director that we watched some stuff from before. It was a Freddy Krueger fan film. Blinky500, Chris, and I'm going to fuck this up, Noralty, or however you say that. And this guy's a pretty big name in fan film creation. He's done just a boatload of them over the years. So many, in fact, that like a lot of them have been taken down and had to be reposted on other websites due to copyright and that whole thing. But, yeah, he's really made a name for himself as the fan film creator, but today we're going to be discussing two of his fan films, short fan films, about a franchise that is quickly becoming incredibly popular, Rick and Morty. So let's talk a little bit about Rick and Morty real quick. Rasco, are you a fan of Rick and Morty?
I done not seen a single episode.
Thank you for your southern draw. Ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know, Rasco's from Kentucky. Yeah, I had not gotten into Rick and Morty until fairly recently. I watched the first two seasons a couple months back, and now I'm sitting through watching season 3 as it airs. It is kind of the ultimate Adult Swim show, in my opinion. It's got a lot going for it, and it has definitely earned this crazy cult following it has. You can get all kinds of crazy Rick and Morty merchandising products and stuff like that. It's something else. They have characters that show up for a whole 2 seconds and then have like people in love with them. It's almost like Star Wars. Like seriously, there's a character called Mr. Poopy Butthole. He's in one episode. There's merchandise for him. They have a character called Mr. Meeseeks. He is in one episode. There's merchandise for him. It's ridiculous. So anyway, I've gotten into Rick and Morty. I find its brand of absurdist, depressive, existential humor quite intriguing, and I enjoy the crap out of it. Let's go ahead and transition then to the fan film. Rasco, since you might have the more interesting opinion, not having seen Rick and Morty, what did you think of this fan film?
I thought it was garbage. I'm just kidding. So we're talking about both of these, correct?
Yeah, they're so short that I feel it's just better to go back and forth between them as opposed to talking about one first than the other.
Okay, yeah. What I really thought was really interesting about both of these is that I think these might be the best, like, or if not, they're like in the top tier of like fan film actors that I think we've seen of any of the fan films that we've reviewed.
That's an interesting claim, because I think some of the acting might be the problem with this one.
It's possible. Maybe that's just lost in translation from animation to screen. But I just had this thing while watching this where I feel like so many of the actors, and in particular, I don't know what the name of the character was, but who's the girl that like beats Ronald McDonald's legs with the?
It was Wendy from Wendy's.
Oh, it was Wendy. You know, it's really weird. I'm watching this, and for some reason in my head, I was like, yeah, that's Ronald McDonald. But for some reason, this Wendy girl, that's got to be just a random character. And it just didn't, like, I just missed that.
He keeps calling her Wendy.
Yeah.
And she looks exactly like Wendy from Wendy's. Yeah. Way to put two and two together, Rasco.
I don't know, something was going on when I was watching this. I don't know what was happening. I just missed that. But I thought that she was such a good actress. Like, I think that she could be literally in like anything and like be capable of acting in it. Like, I could see her on TV easily.
Yeah, I'd agree. I liked her. I go back and forth on Ronald McDonald in that because, like, oh my god, when he is crying and giving that recipe, that is hilarious in a really dark way, and he really sells it. But, like, then when he's angry and he's yelling at Rick, something about it it didn't feel as natural or whatever, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of back and forth with that on some of the actors. Like, the guy that played Johnny Bravo, I feel like he did a really, really solid Johnny Bravo. And this isn't so much an acting thing, but, like, I feel his performance as Johnny Bravo was undermined by the way it was edited. Because, like, okay, if you watch a Johnny Bravo cartoon, he'll, like, do the poses that this guy is doing, and it'll have the sound effects. But, like, there's very little animation between the poses to get, like, the transition going. So, like, you stick out your arm, and then you far away from your body, and then you go to flexing, and there's, like, the movement of your forearm as you get to flex your bicep. Johnny Bravo, like, in the cartoon, you'll barely see his arm move, and then he'll flex. Yeah. And in this, you just see the guy do it as quick as he can, and they play the sound effect. And, like, I feel that if you really wanted to really sell that, what you would do is you would cut when he starts to move, cut when he's finished moving, and then fast forward that little section of video as quick as possible, then sandwich it together.
Yeah.
And so even the guy is really selling the action as Johnny Bravo. The fact that it's edited, like, somewhat, I'm not going to say lazily, but it doesn't feel like they thought through the editing side of that as much as they could have.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because that's, like, one of the first times I think we've ever really talked about, like, actually, how frequently do we really, like, because sometimes we'll talk about, like, bad editing, but we very rarely will go in and talk about, like, the editing, and that is, like, a very, very specific but actually very worthwhile just little nitpick, because that actually is exactly, like, what you're saying you would do. That is exactly what you would do. And you can see people, like, videos on YouTube where people, like, for example, I saw a video where it was, like, an opening fight scene from, like, the movie from the Netflix show Iron Fist, where someone went in and, like, did that to make the fighting look more fluid and less rehearsed in some points. If you just, like, speed it up a little bit every once in a while, and that's a very small trick that once I learned it, I was like, oh, I can think of so many places where you'd use that. But you're right, like, that is exactly what you would have done there. And maybe it's just that no one here fancies themselves an editor working on this, which I think is pretty fair. Like, I don't know how many people make fan films and then don't, like, also edit them or have, like, someone they know who's a friend edit them or something like that. Unless you're, like, an actual editor, you might not think to do that. That's actually a really, like, small thing, but I'm glad you talked about that.
No, and that's just one of the things I noticed. So, like, just different things on this kind of took me in and out. I kind of went in and out on some of the acting in this. Like, I feel like, oh my god, the visual of Rick and Morty, the actors that they got for that, is fucking perfect. But then there'd be, like, things that I felt undermined the performance. And I guess it's not so much an actor thing outside of Ronald McDonald's actor. It is more, I guess my problem is the more I think about him, go back to the editing. Like, Rick in the show will just burp in the middle of his lines. Mm-hmm. And in all honesty, that is one thing I don't really care for in the show. You remember the These Are the Actors You're Looking For fan film we talked about, where they interviewed Brian Ness, and he talked about, if you're going to make noises as an actor for your character, that's fine, but don't let the noises step on the dialogue.
Uh-huh.
And in the show, Rick will do that. He'll burp through a line, and it always pulls me out of it. It always distracts me a little bit. It's something you just kind of get used to. In here, they're trying to recapture that and have Rick burp through lines, but it's very clearly edited in post.
Mm-hmm.
And, my feeling on that is it just, you can tell, it just looks a little sloppy by comparison. And I don't know, I think it would be a lot cooler if, or it would make more sense if, just give the guy a root beer before you, or while you're in between takes. Just let him have a root beer and just burp randomly throughout the lines. That doesn't seem too far out to me. So I don't know, but like, yeah, I guess the more I think about it, the more my like specific problems go to how I don't feel this is tightly edited enough. Like, another good example at the end of the first one, Jerry is Morty's father. When he's like downstairs and gets shot because he didn't announce himself when he came in the room or something, the way that's cut, it just cuts over and you see him like standing there as he says his line. He should have been entering the room as he said his line when it cut to him. So then the turn and shoot him real quick would just play more believably. Would you agree with that or no?
No, yeah, that's true.
Okay. So yeah, you know, you're right. The actors are pretty damn good. Morty, like, just constantly getting stepped over in dialogue's pretty funny. That really worked for me. They look spot on. Everybody looks really spot on, except for Jerry being like, you know, kind of a bigger guy in this, but that's fine. It's whatever. The costuming, even though it's so simplistic, is still just like, yay, they got the costumes right.
Yeah.
There's no compromise on that, so I was really impressed with all that stuff.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, and the costumes, they don't really look like cheap Halloween costumes, even though they probably are. They don't look like it.
Well, I imagine you can probably, like, okay, I mean, Morty's wearing a yellow t-shirt, Rick's wearing a lab coat and a blue long sleeve shirt and some khakis. You know, these aren't hard costumes to pull off, and I imagine there are probably plenty of resources for Rick and Morty cosplayers online. I'm willing to say that with the utmost confidence without even doing a preliminary Google search while I am talking right now. People watching this video, feel free to Google search. I'm sure you can pull up great Rick and Morty cosplay stuff to find that you could buy online. So yeah, the costuming and the actors are pretty good. I'd tend to agree with you the more I think about it. I think the problem is that the editing doesn't highlight it.
Yeah, that's fair, because, you know, the big thing that, at least, like, I've noticed this, and this is actually true of a lot of things. This is true of, like, any sort of, like, riding a bike or a scooter or a skateboard. It's also true for acting. It's like when people go, or like stand-up comedy or singing, anything, when you go up and you're kind of iffy and you're kind of unsure of yourself, like, you are guaranteed to fail. Like, if you get on a bike and you're like, I'm kind of afraid to pedal forward, you'll fall off the side. And what I notice in a lot of fan films, when the acting is bad, it's typically because people are kind of like holding back because maybe they're a little bit too afraid to fully commit. And that's something that this just doesn't have. Like, I just noticed so many fan films where it's like someone will be like getting tortured or beat up, and they're yelling or they're angry. And the way they don't sell it, they're kind of like they've got the face and they're like breathing heavy, but then they're like over pronouncing their words and they're speaking very slowly they're like that. And it doesn't work. In this, Ronald McDonald, he's really just committing to being tortured. And that's what I like about it, is that everyone's just like really committing, and like no one feels like they're kind of awkward when it comes to just delivering dialogue exactly how it's meant to be delivered. They just deliver it exactly how it's supposed to. Everyone feels like they're comfortable. No one feels awkward or uncomfortable at all. That was just so like refreshing to see, and that's what really stood out, even though I know jack shit about anything else anything about Rick and Morty. I know jack shit, but I loved just the confidence that I felt from like literally everybody in the cast.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I would say the only problem I have specifically with the acting is during the torture scene with Ronald McDonald, and specifically how it ends with Rick like kicking him into a portal. You can tell he's like pulling his leg, you know? He's not putting any force into that kick. And there's a couple other moments like that when like Wendy is torturing him. You can tell she's pulling back the punches. And like, yeah, it's a fan film. You don't want to get hurt. I remember MG Lusick, a Deadpool fan series creator, he got, like, in the news at one point because they had an actual gun and they were firing blanks at each other for their shoot, and, like, whatever they put in place of a bullet in a blank actually got and, like, shot someone in the leg, one of the actors in the leg. I mean, they were fine. It's not like a Brandon Lee situation. It was just like, it went an inch deep in their leg, but they had to go get an ambulance, and it, like, turned into a big media story for, just because, kids playing with guns. Ban
fan films! Ban them!
Yeah, and so I get not wanting to hurt yourselves or do things like that. And, like I've talked about, I made films before, we did stupid shit. But, even going back to, 2008, the first major film we made, it wasn't as prolonged torture scene, but we have a scene in that's kind of like a parody of the repairman scenes in Wanted, and I don't know, I feel like it looks more like believable punches in that scene, just, maybe memories failing, but, like, I feel that scene looked more like believable punches than some of the stuff that happened in the torture scene. And part of that is, actors committing to it. Part of that's being okay with taking a little bit harder of a hit. That's what, stunt work's all about. And then part of it's just good camera angling. So you can have someone actually throw a punch that has force behind the punch, but never make contact with the person. So it just is, if you time it right, angle it right, it looks just as good anyway. So there's just stuff like that where I think that this was, like, well done, but now that I've watched it, I think 3 times in preparation for this, once when I first discovered it, once when I thought we were going to record for this, and then once just before recording, I've had more time to, like, live with it, I guess, and I'm noticing more of these little inconsistencies and such.
Yeah. That's pretty fair. I think, I don't know, like, we've weirdly you can kind of trace a lot of the little things that you're talking about all back to editing almost, where, like, the whole thing with, like, making hits look believable, all that's kind of stuff that you can fix in editing.
Yeah, with, again, the speed up effect, or just, again, if not editing in your shooting, just, angle it right. I mean, I'm pretty sure I got the footage that I can play in the video, and I could just show you guys this clip from this stupid movie I made in '08, and, like, people in the comments can let me know if they feel that scene looks effective. So I could just, pause the podcast right now.
You can call me the repairman. But you're Raj. Okay.
So what'd you guys think? Leave a comment. Let me know if you think I'm just looking back with rosy glasses, or if you feel that it looks more believable. You tell me. But all that aside, I feel like I'm being overly harsh on this, and I don't want that to be the case, because I do feel that it is still a really effective and fun to watch fan film. What would you say?
Yeah, and, like, I think that this is, like, one of the easier fan films to watch just across the board, because it feels, to me, it feels really competent, and it feels just like this is, and I know for a fact this is not the first time Blinky's made something like this, obviously. So the confidence really does show in this. And so I think that, and if you look through the comments, I've actually seen a lot of comments where people are like, I thought this was going to be cringe, but then I was surprised. And I was like, yeah, like, I feel like there's a level of actual talent that's involved here that just kind of is to some degree really, like, refreshing, I guess.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, when I first I saw this the day it was posted, the Johnny Bravo one, and initially, I don't know if it's still this way, but initially he made 2 videos or 2 postings of the exact same video, and one was called the Johnny Bravo fan film you never realized you wanted. And then eventually, and then the second one was just Rick and Morty ruin a fan film. I'm like, man, I really wish you didn't do that, because I really wish that this just stayed the Johnny Bravo fan film you didn't know you wanted. Because it's like it ruins the joke once you know Rick and Morty are coming in it, right?
Yeah.
Like that just it's a meta thing. It's outside of the piece, but it's still like a problem as you watch it, because I'm like, man, that would have been so fucking hilarious if I told Rasco we're reviewing a Johnny Bravo fan film, and then like he just sat there and watched it, and all of a sudden Rick and Morty show up. I would have like blown his fucking mind.
That was hilarious.
Oh man. So like, I don't know, that's more of a marketing thing. I will say a complaint I've had since the first time I watched both of these that I do think is fair is this certainly gets the tone of Rick and Morty pretty down pat. But at the same time, this isn't really a fan film where we're watching Rick and Morty go on an adventure or do something together. This is more a fan film where, like, we're watching Rick and Morty affect other things. Because, like, the first one is Rick and Morty ruin a fan film. They come into a Johnny Bravo fan film and they throw their darkness into it, and Lady kills Johnny Bravo and herself and says there's no God. Like, that's very funny, but if you say, when I say, hey, we're going to watch a Rick and Morty fan film, you think we're going to watch a fan film about Rick and Morty. And it's really a fan film about Rick and Morty affecting them. Same with the second one. That is more a fast food fan film in a weird way than it is wholly about Rick and Morty. And I guess I'm conflicted on this because it definitely gets the tone of how to write Rick and Morty. I just want more of actually Rick and Morty and less of them affecting random scenarios. And I suppose the problem with that is Rick and Morty has a lot of, like, crazy shit happen in it because it's an animated show. So, like, you know, there's the multiverse and you know, time travel and all this shit in Rick and Morty that you would have a really hard time visualizing in a low-budget fan film. Mm-hmm. And so that made him... Like, I'm kind of torn on it because I feel like...
You have to do something creative like the Archer fan film. Where they're, like, in a matrix.
That would work. And there was an episode of Rick and Morty about him being in a simulation of just his hometown. So that could, on some conceivable level, work. You know, it's just a little disappointing, but in a way that just makes me want more, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm conflicted, I guess. What'd you think? Was there enough Rick and Morty to your taste?
I don't know. I don't know anything about the show, so I don't know what I'm expecting going in. Mm-hmm. I will say, like, what initially intrigued me about the first one was that I was like, oh, this is Johnny Bravo. And I was like, Johnny Bravo. And I just wanted to watch Johnny Bravo. So I was just like, oh, that's interesting. Then they come into it and it's theirs. But, like, I don't know. I didn't really know what I was expecting.
Okay, that's fair. And I mean, like, it's certainly got the fourth wall breaking Rick Sanchez kind of stuff. Like, I love when he walks in there and he says, oh, sorry to interrupt your fan film. And she's like, what's a fan film? Just a crappy low-budget thing about an obscure franchise made by a couple nerds in their basement or whatever he says. That was really funny.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, like, that was a really good line. That was a totally Rick line. Rick and Morty breaks the fourth wall constantly. Like, the whole thing about fucking McNugget sauce was from the season 3 premiere. And he reveals that his entire reason for creating this dimensional hopping portal gun was to find a dimension or a universe where they still made this promotional Mulan McNugget sauce from 1998. Because he's that in love with it. And, like, he just, at the end of the episode, he just starts ranting at Morty. He's like, it was all about the sauce, Morty, all along. It's going to be my 9-season character arc, Morty. All about the McNugget sauce, Morty. 9 seasons. And it's just like they have that all the time where there's references to the fact that it's a television show. Like there's just a recent episode about like them going to fight with a team of superheroes, and Morty goes, yeah, I can't even remember the name of this. Vindicators season 2 or Vindicators part 2. So like the nature of them clearly being aware that they're in a fan film is really fun as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. You take us somewhere, Rasco.
What shall we talk about? I guess we can talk about, have we really talked about how it's shot?
No, we mentioned a little bit, some of the action's a little off, but like, I really liked the color palette used, particularly in the first one, how it goes from like kind of, yellowish hue, bright and sunny, and then once she starts to like lose her mind toward the end, it goes
like
that
draining.
Yeah, it goes that like gray desaturated look.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. And then Rick and Morty come back and it goes back to normal. That was fun.
Yeah.
What was a shot you liked?
One of the things that I thought was just, and it was just like a small thing, but I was like, oh, someone would have made a mistake in a lesser fan film, and that's when Rick like goes up to the camera and he starts like grabbing it and yelling it, right? And so like the thing is though, like I think that shot is like a handheld shot, or I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure like someone's holding the camera and he's just taking the camera out of the guy who's holding the camera's hands, right? And then like he has to like later on, right after he takes the camera out, he like turns it in a way where like what was behind the camera is kind of like almost immediately revealed, and you would have like the guy clearly had to like run out of the room as fast as he possibly could, like as immediately as he picks up the camera to make it look like there wasn't anybody holding it. He just like runs out of the room really fast. I was just thinking about that in the back of my head. Like when they shot this scene, they were like, okay, dude, you've got to literally turn and fucking run. You've just got to get out of there, man. Get out of there. There's like a door and everything. It's just hilarious. I thought just thinking about what it must have been like to plan that was really funny.
I would say that like he may have run out of the room, and I imagine like if the director is listening to this, he's probably like, yeah, thanks Rasco for understanding how hard a shot that was to pull off. The other option would be once he takes the camera, drop down to the ground.
Possibly.
That would be the more expedient solution and less likely to require reshoots. And I don't know which one they did, but yeah, I agree. I thought that was a neat shot to pull off, and it's that fun way of breaking the fourth wall that Rick and Morty totally have. I'm trying to think of a shot I liked. I don't know, like it's not that it's poorly shot or anything like that. It's just kind of like serviceable shooting for the most part, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of like directed around the writing, and that's something that happens in a lot of like comedies where you just kind of need to make sure you get enough coverage of like the people interacting, and you don't need to focus on like distracting people with how you're shooting a scene necessarily. Mm-hmm. So as long as it's not like bad, then it's fine, and it was fine here. So.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I thought it looked good. It was certainly, it served the writing, and the writing's probably the best part about this. To speak a little bit more about the writing, holy shit, I love watching Lindy torture Ronald McDonald. That is so darkly hilarious. Like, right from the beginning, she's like, "Ooh, I like it when you beg, Ronald." And she does the pro wrestling thing with like putting her hand up to her ear. Do it again. Like that was really funny.
Yeah.
And she's got the hammer. Oh.
Yeah, that character, like Wendy could have been really annoying to me because I have this thing where like sadistic female characters are oftentimes written in ways that just piss me off to no end. And I'm not saying that like it's all sadistic female characters. I'm just saying there's like a certain way in which some people will play like this just like femme fatale type character, and it bothers me. But this is like walking the line where she gets it like just right, and that was what I really liked about her performance, is that she's literally playing like a version of Wendy that I should hate, but I actually liked it. Props.
Yeah, and it's also got this funny added connotation because of the whole Wendy's and McDonald's Twitter war kind of thing going on. I don't know if you've looked into that at all, but I thought that was that really helped sell it for me. Of Wendy's is the group or the business on Twitter that just like mercilessly mocks McDonald's left and right, and so Wendy's just savage on Twitter, and so I thought it was pretty funny to see her show up in this. It's a little funny you didn't get that. That
yeah, I don't know. I'm just a complete idiot. When I guess I was just like, my brain was not in my head when I was watching this. I'm just like,
that's pretty funny. All right. Well, I don't think I have anything else I really want to get into. I enjoyed this as much as I've like pointed out problems with it, but I did enjoy the hell out of it. I thought it was a lot of fun. There's like another Rick and Morty claymation that cracked me the hell up, but like it requires so much context to get the joke, and it's also only like 2-3 minutes long, so I decided not to do that one.
Do all this research for 2 to 3 minutes.
Yeah, well, like you'd have to watch the episode that Mr. Meeseeks is from, and then like we'd have to talk about a 3-minute fan film that all is just about one joke, and I don't know if we could do that. So, Rick and Morty's got a huge fan base though, so I've no doubt in my mind there are going to be more Rick and Morty fan films in the future, and I look forward to them. Let's go ahead and go on to ratings. Rasco, what will you rate this fan film? Or these fan films? Do you want to do 2 ratings, or do you want to do 1?
I'm just gonna do it collectively since we talked about them collectively.
Okay.
I'm gonna just give it a 4 out of 5 baseball caps to the knee. Baseball caps? What does that even mean? What? Baseball bats to the knee.
Okay. You know, I see why you did it, but I got to go a little bit lower because the more I've thought about it, the more like specific problems I've found. And I might forgive that in, you know, a less well-known fan film creator, but I've seen Chris do some cooler stuff than this with editing. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this 3.5 out of 5. Oh, you stole the good one. 3.5 out of 5, Johnny Bravo's shot in the face. Okay.
Cloning was involved.
Indeed. I mean, I suppose you'd have to have cloning involved. All right.
Yeah.
What are we going to be talking about next time, Rasco?
I'm glad you asked, because midway through recording this fan film review, I remembered, holy shit, I've got to pick a fan film for next review. So I quickly went to YouTube, typed in the words fan film, and the first thing to pop up is what we're going with, and it got me excited. Ed, and Eddie, the movie live action fan film.
Oh my word, really?
Yes.
That's fast. Okay, I'm down. That is an awesome pick, Rasco. Yes. All right, everyone, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
And I'm the Beta Male Cog.
And we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things. Hi everyone. So thanks for watching the podcast if you got to this point. I just figured I'd do a quick video just talking about something here. So I played this clip from my movie.
You can call me the repairman. But you're Raj. Okay. Oh, yo! Oh, shoot!
And that's a movie friends and I made back in 2008, 2009, somewhere. And there's just a funny story behind a particular moment in that. I'm going to pause the frame right there. That cloud of blood you're seeing pop up, I want to talk about that. So the way that we decided we're going to do that is this friends David and Bobby sitting there. Bobby's the one sitting down getting beat up, and the way we got that explosion of blood, it's not a digital effect, it's actually practical. We had Bobby holding a bottle of fake blood just in his lap, and we're like, okay, don't do anything with it, just keep it stable. But then when he does the uppercut, just splash a little bit up. So when the uppercut comes, he not only splashes some up, but he accidentally squeezes the bottle, so like a ton came out. And you'll see that blood splash kind of go everywhere, and you'll notice that he starts laughing during it because he realized he screwed up, and David just kind of walks away and smiling a bit because he realized what happened too. And then we couldn't reshoot it because of what happened, which is the blood got everywhere over David's mother's kitchen. And so that's the clip that we had to keep, but there was fake blood all over the ceiling of David's mother's kitchen. But being the industrious, bright young men that we were, we immediately drove to the nearest hardware store after trying to dab it out with towels didn't work in the slightest. We drove to the nearest hardware store and bought some white spray paint, just spray painted the ceiling. And she noticed in like the first 10 minutes of her walking to the door, she's like, what the hell's with these stains on my ceiling? And we had to explain it, and we felt really stupid. Oddly enough, not nearly the dumbest thing we did for that movie, not even close to the most dangerous, dumbest thing we did in any of the stupid-ass movies we've made. Thanks for watching.